Li Junyoung, always resourceful, gathered information from Inchang. He even insulted the North Army Guild by calling it a chaos guild, sponsored by evil beings. Inchang was furious and released a powerful killing aura, but Li Junyoung managed to calm the situation by suggesting that the North Army Guild could change. Returning to the guild, Inchang couldn't help but wonder who Li Junyoung really was. Meanwhile, Li Junyoung believed that he could persuade Inchang to join his side, as he saw potential in him. Inchang was known as a famous hunter, rumored to have defeated the Avatar Demon King and other formidable monsters. However, he was ultimately killed by Choi Yong-soo. The problem was that while Inchang was incredibly strong, his resolve was weak. The North Army Guild's future relied on Inchang's balance within the guild. Recognizing this, Li Junyoung started training diligently to strengthen his body and skills. After slaying numerous dungeon monsters, his spear was damaged, leading him to visit the most renowned blacksmith's workshop in the area. However, at this moment, the Red-Haired Forge had only a small business. This man's name is Park Ye-hun. In the Demon King's book, he said that if Park Ye-hun helped the Demon King to the end, then history will definitely change. At first, when someone came here, Park felt strange about Li Junyoung's arrival. But after Li Junyoung explained that he was sponsored to come here, Park had no doubts about him. The problem was that Park couldn't make his equipment because he wasn't satisfied with the fire in this place. However, Li Junyoung promised to help him overcome the fire with his magic. Park was very surprised because Li Junyoung's fire magic was high level. A week later, Park finally succeeded in making a very good and deadly weapon, a spear that could be strengthened with fire magic. The greater the fire it received, the stronger the spear would become. The story continued with Li Junyoung in the dungeon. He was trying to get the power out of his skull bracelet, but he hadn't received any clues about it yet. Even if he only had Inchang on his side, Li's chance of winning would increase. 2 weeks before the gate deployment, Li Junyoung was working hard to increase his level with the new spear. His strength was much different from before, evident in his battles against monsters in the dungeon. The bad thing was that there was very little time to reach the targeted level, and John hadn't been able to rest in these 2 weeks. The next day, Choi instructed all members to get everything ready. After today, the North Army would become the strongest guild in the world. Inchang was very surprised by Choi's current aura, wondering how his level had reached rank A so quickly. Meanwhile, Choi's right-hand man proclaimed that everything was going according to that person's plan. With this motivation, all members were excited to complete the gate. Elsewhere, on the way to the gate, Kim warned Li Junyoung about the North Guild. If he continued to follow the gate, the highest possibility was death. Li Junyoung knew it, but couldn't let that rotten guild mess up again. Here, he would teach the value of a person. Near Li Junyoung, he was surprised to see Xionggu, even though guild leagues weren't allowed in this place. Xionggu warned Li Junyoung to be more careful because Choi was stronger than he imagined. It was clear that Choi had become rank A. Xionggu said he would wait for Li Junyoung to come out, and if not, he would destroy the guild. Li Junyoung was impressed by Xionggu's determination. Shortly after that, the dungeon opened, and 100 hunters would start the extermination mission. Before entering, they were surprised by the level change. The system said that special traits were activated, and the exit was barricaded. To get out, they had to defeat the boss dungeon first. It was said to be a grade, so everyone felt panic and fear. Choi and his 2 subordinates were calm because they were in control of this dungeon. Choi shouted loudly, asking everyone to calm down. He said they should not give up, and by working together, they could get through all of this. Then a notification appeared saying the ruler of the Riverside was trying to dominate Riverside. This was Choi's skill to control the hunters beneath him. Li Junyoung couldn't move and just went with the flow. Choi asked Yong-soo to save his strength because a big wave would occur in the next few hours. Choi would use the hunters under him as a shield. Besides, Choi gave a mission to Inchang to kill Li Junyoung no matter what. The first wave started, and mermen came toward the hunters. They rushed to fight, even though they knew the monsters had high levels. Some hunters died due to the claws and dangerous slashes of the monster. On the other hand, Li Junyoung wanted to help, but he had to save his stamina. Suddenly, the North Army members started attacking the lizards from behind to motivate other hunters to fight to the max. Realizing this, Li Junyoung decided to move too. With his fire spear, he managed to defeat several monsters at once. All the hunters who saw this were truly amazed by the greatness of the young man, discovering who he really was. On the other hand, Inchin was also taken aback because Li Junyoung's progress had been so unexpected. Just 10 days ago, in Chang's mind, Li Junyoung was still the same. But now, his level had shot up to rank A. Returning to Li Junyoung's side, with his incredible strength, the first wave finally came to an end without causing many casualties. Although in the first wave Lee Junyoung's stamina was drained quite a bit, somehow his strength improved even more. Better yet, some sponsors started paying attention to Lee Junyoung. But when Lee Junyoung mentioned that he would become a strong hero if he got more sponsors, the Sky of Apocalypse seemed displeased, and all sponsors lost interest. Sometime later, many hunters approached Lee Junyoung and wanted to help him. Of course, this made Choi sick because his plan had been disrupted a little, yet he would instigate everything again. After learning Choi's weakness, Lee Junyoung would attract all the hunters to his side. While doing that, he could also reach level 30. After a tiring battle, they finally reached the 5th wave. Even though 4 hunters had lost their lives, many of the hunters started to feel despair. Lee Junyoung, who had grown tired of Choi's insults, couldn't understand why they weren't taking action despite the humiliation. Choi remained silent, knowing his plan had been ruined, but he was determined to carry it out. As Wave 5 came to an end, a mid-boss dungeon appeared. The monster was a water golem, and its strength would increase, making it invincible if it got into the water. This was a dire situation. How could they possibly defeat it? One of these deadly water beasts could devastate the land. With no other options, the hunters began to attack the golem. The ranged hunters and attackers all tried their best, but their attacks had no effect at all. The only attack that seemed to hurt the monster was Lee Junyoung's spear. Legion explained that to harm these monsters, they needed to coat their weapons with magic. Hearing this, all the hunters started to try it, and, as Lee Junyoung had said, by enchanting their weapons with magic, they could finally begin to harm the water golems. The problem this time is that when you attack the monster, it heals up quickly. That's when Lee Junyoung figured out the water golem's weakness was in its core. So, he waited patiently for the core to show itself. When the right moment came, he hurled his spear with all his might. The spear hit the monster's core, and that's how they defeated the mid-boss dungeon. Lee Junyoung got a water gem as a reward and even leveled up. Some sponsors were pretty impressed with his skills. Other hunters soon realized that this young guy was an A-rank hunter. 2 months ago, he was just a rookie. Choi, who saw this, was not happy at all. He was mad because Lee Junyoung kept getting stronger. Then, Chang came up and asked Choi to give up, making Choi even angrier. He told everyone to step up and become heroes. But when he looked back, Chang was gone, leaving his mask behind. He had quit the North Army Guild. The North Army members started battling the monsters below, and they realized their levels were way behind Lee Junyoung's. He was taking down waves of monsters like crazy, not even worrying about his stamina. His goal was to level up and become even stronger. Suddenly, Lee Junyoung was surprised by a woman who came to help him. Surprisingly, she was wearing the same clothes as Chang. So, behind that iron mask was not a man, but a woman. Lee Junyoung was still suspicious that Chang might be with Choi's group, so he kept his distance. But when In-chang showed her determination to leave the North Army Guild, he finally accepted her. Even though In-chang had helped some hunters and some had even died, she didn't regret her decision. She joined because she was inspired Lee's determination. After a short break, the dungeon boss finally appeared. All the hunters got ready to face it. Surprisingly, this time their opponent was a giant snake. It seemed like Lee Junyoung knew how to defeat this huge monster. He noticed that In-chang looked even stronger when she was cornered. On the other hand, Choi gave a strange order. He wanted to control the dungeon boss. Choi used his power to make it rain in the dungeon, even though Lee Junyoung had the water element. But the rain had no effect. Lee Junyoung decided to go after Choi to corner him. Although Lee Junyoung might be stronger, it was because of the waves that made him even more powerful. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.